your PvP track rewards. This is what it looks like when you have one PvP track completed. And then there are sets that you only get from the endgame raids. Let's talk about the combat, because this is what most people don't want to play the game and what most people criticize about the game. So, in my opinion, combat in video games always serves a purpose. Yeah, it always serves a purpose. There's a game called Black Desert Online that has so flashy and good combat that you can stand for 6 hours on a pillar or on a grinding spot and kill the same wave of mobs over and over again. And it's still somewhat fun because you have the key inputs, super fast. Your class is heavily, you are a god in BDO. Yeah, every class is a god in BDO. And this is what the combat is for. Like, the developers of Black Desert Online, they're currently people for Prolibus making the savior class. And what do you think what the team leader is actually telling them how they have to design the class? Do you think they are like, okay guys, so the savior class, it is supposed to be like kind of the female version of a warrior maybe? And make sure please that it fits into the PvP meta that is currently going down in sieges. And don't forget about the next Arena of Solaris season. We want to keep the integrity of the competition, and please don't overtune this class too much. Do you think they're going to do that? Do you think that is what, in any capacity, on the list of the devs that sit down and make this class? No. They have one job and one job only, and that is to make this class. Okay, there are two jobs. First, this class needs to be insanely flashy, and it needs to have a selling point in promotional videos, yeah, in these trailers. People need to be blown away and be like, holy shit, I want to play this. And second, it needs to feel good to stand on a pillar and kill mobs with it. Because if that doesn't feel good, then, well, really no one's gonna do it, yeah? Like, I have spent in my life, what, 10,000 hours killing shit in BDO? I wouldn't have done that if it would have New World Combat. Because New World Combat is not designed to kill the same mob over and over and over and over and over again, yeah? So, you of course have this ultra flashy combat in the end, because the devs have complete and absolute freedom to design these classes. But what did it bring us throughout the years in BDO? Ever think back to the Striker release? What an abomination of a class. Suddenly there was a class that could just do everything. It had 2 grabs, everything had super armor because it could jump around, and the class had just everything. And look at the power creep of classes. Look, they then added Archer to it. Yeah, well, how much did they struggle throughout the years to balance Archer? Because how do you balance this? There's a large-scale PvP battle, 100 versus 100, and you have one class that shoots lightning arrows from fucking out of render range. How do you balance this? Either that shit deals damage or not. If it deals damage, the last time I got Stormtrooper in BDO was years ago. I was sitting flex. I tagged an Archer before the siege. I didn't know how to play Archer. I didn't know a combo or anything. I just pressed Shift E. I got Stormtrooper. I killed people that I didn't even see. You have classes in BDO that work faster than that run faster than the servers. Like, that is what an Awakened Nova is. She accelerates and she's faster than the server allows. And you know that is a problem in in a lot of content, but it's not a problem for what combat is for. And that combat is for grinding. And I have grind on Awakened Nova, and it feels fantastic. It feels absolutely fantastic. You just go fucking apeshit on these mobs. But if you bring this to a siege, it's unplayable. Yeah, especially when the people roll in with 800 FPS. And that is the trick of making MMORPG content. The MMORPG combat needs to work for whatever content you have in the game. And in New World, you have fully fledged out action combat that is working out in instance PvP, arenas, battlegrounds, capture the flag battleground, Dominion style battleground. It's working in a procedural dungeon, it's working in normal dungeons, it's working in mutated dungeons, it's working in 10 versus 10 raids, and it's working when you're solo when you're solo killing mobs. No one's saying that this content combat is just as flashy and crazy on paper like BDOs. But it can't be, because then you just end up with not being able to have all this content in the game. That is just my point of view on combat in games. Like, look at World of Warcraft, for example. A classic WoW with all its raids and stuff. Like, can you imagine having this in BDO? Like, what would that look like? Look how what they had to do. Like, Polybus wanted to do bosses. They gave you bosses. And what did they have to do to make it somewhat balanced? They had to give every class an iframe. Because some classes had spammable iframes and other classes did not, and it was completely unbalanced. So now bosses in Black Desert Online are working that everyone just goes in and needs to know when to iframe. That is it. You need to know when to iframe. That is the result of complete and absolute power creep on all classes, because it's not their priority. And if people go with the mindset on an MMORPG and be like, oh yeah, BDO feels better than killing shit, then you will always be unhappy in every MMORPG. You will never find an MMORPG that actually is fun. And then you're just gonna miss out. And that's not about shitty New World. That is also about Throne Liberty. Because there are people in my chat, people in my community, and we had 2 months of absolute hardcore fun in Throne Liberty. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah? And of course the game have flaws, and especially the shit with the alliances was really tilting. You're just missing Nerflandevis. But you're just missing out on games out there and on MMORPGs if you are waiting for a game that has all this content and then at the same time it has like there's an online like a combat, because it's not gonna happen. If I would make an MMORPG, I would never make combat like this. I would never make combat like this, because maybe there's a reason why I logged into BDO 2 hours ago and there were 4 people waiting for a battleground. 4 people. 4 people. In all over Europe. It was 5:30 p.m. 4 people were waiting for a battleground. I was logged into the game for 10 minutes, and before I logged out, one of these players gave up and left, and it was only 3 people waiting for the start of a battleground. Maybe there's a reason for it. Because people are looking at this combat, people are experiencing this combat in Red Battlefield, you just don't want to play it. You get dashed down by someone who is playing, I don't know, like he's possessed or some shit. Especially because some people are really, really fucking good at it. And at the same time, in New World, you have queue times from less than a minute for a 20 versus 20 battleground. And at the same time, you have queue times from less than a minute for a 10 versus 10 battleground. And there's just a reason for it. And if people just want, if you just look at combat isolated on paper, then New World combat is not as good as BDO's combat. Of course it's not. But if you look at what you do with it and what you can do with it, then New World's combat is better by a landslide. Thanks for coming to my pep talk. Exactly. People are not stupid. People are not stupid. People know in BDO, of course, that it is a lot smarter. It is a lot smarter to AFK fish and wait for Calcium Ball and then get all the freebies. And then get all the freebies and get the catch-up mechanics instead of now grinding or even cashing and then going to the Calcium Ball.